You ever wake up from a dream, heart pounding, and just think, what on earth was that all about? I mean, we've all been there, right? The images are so vivid, the feelings are totally real, but the meaning, it feels like it's just right out of reach. But what if you could look at those bizarre dreams not as some confusing jumble of symbols, but as a perfectly drawn map of your inner world? I mean, forget the dream dictionaries. Forget asking your friends for their wild guesses. Today, we are going to dive into a whole new way of looking at this, an approach that gives your dreams the respect they actually deserve. All right, so let's get right into it. The way most people try to figure out their dreams is through something called dreamworking. It's usually a group thing. Someone shares a dream, and then everyone else chimes in with, well, if it were my dream. Now look, everyone means well, but this creates a massive problem. It's a little something called projection noise. What's happening is that everyone in the room is filtering your dream through their own life, their memories, their baggage, and the result? You end up with a dozen different takes that are way more about them than they are about you. The actual message of your dream just gets lost in all that static. So what we really need here is a total paradigm shift. We've got to move away from this, let's call it a horizontal view, where you're just collecting a bunch of different opinions. Instead, we need to adopt a vertical view. We stop asking what the dream means to other people and start asking, what is the dream's actual structure? And that, right there, is the heart of what's called structural dreamworking. And here is the big central idea. Every single dream, and I don't care how weird or chaotic it seems on the surface, is actually a story. Yep, a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Your mind isn't just tossing random images at a wall, it's telling you a complete narrative. And what's so cool about this is that our dreams very often follow that classic 5-part structure you learned about in English class. You've got an introduction that sets the scene, then a rising conflict where the tension starts to build, then bam, you hit the climax, the emotional peak. After that, there's a falling conflict as things start to wind down, and finally, a resolution. Our brains are natural-born storytellers, even when we're fast asleep. And listen, this isn't just some neat little theory. When researchers actually sat down and analyzed over 100 dreams, get this, they found that a full 50% of them followed this exact short story structure. That's incredible. It proves there's a predictable architecture to our dreams, one that we can actually map out. So, okay, if a dream is a story, that means we can chart its emotional plot. Some researchers call it the strain gradient, but I think it's easier to just think of it as a map of the emotional journey your mind took while you were sleeping. Now, the most important landmark on this entire map is the climax of the story. It's called the center of image. This is that one single moment in the dream where the emotional intensity is at its absolute highest. It's the structural and emotional heart of the whole experience. So let's look at what these emotional maps can look like. The most common one follows a simple arc. The emotional tension builds up, nice and steady. It hits that single peak, that's our center of image, and then it calmly resolves. This pattern often shows the mind successfully working through one specific issue. But sometimes the map looks a little more wavy. This is the multi-wave pattern. The tension goes up and down, maybe a few times. This is really common when our minds are wrestling with a more complex or a recurring problem, kind of processing it over and over again in cycles. And then you've got the nightmare. In this case, the emotional strain just shoots up so fast, so intensely, that the dream just stops. It cuts off right at the peak. You can think of this as your brain pulling the emergency brake. It's a safety switch, a protective measure to keep the emotional overload from becoming completely overwhelming. Okay, so we've got the story structure, and we've got the emotional arc. The final piece of our map is figuring out the types of feelings happening in the dream. This is what tells us what our mind is actually trying to do. We can actually categorize the feelings in the dream to see its purpose. Are they past-oriented feelings, dealing with old guilt or memories? Are they present-oriented, grappling with stuff from your day, like helplessness or embarrassment? Or are they future-oriented, kind of rehearsing solutions or planning an escape? By figuring out this feeling layout, we get this amazingly clear window into what the dream is actually for. So, when you put all of this together, the story structure, the emotional arc, and the feeling layout, you get something pretty incredible. You get a clear, personalized map of your own mind at work. A map that was created by you, for you. And the benefits here are just huge.
First off, it protects your privacy. You don't have to spill your guts and tell your whole life story to anyone. It cuts right through all that projection noise because you're focused on the dream's actual structure, not what other people think. It gives you a clear, systematic map, and I think this is the most important part. It empowers you. You're the one holding the map and the compass now.
And that really is the main takeaway here. This whole structural approach doesn't just hand you the answer and say, here's what your dream means. Now, what it does is give you a much, much better map so that you can navigate your own inner world and find the meaning for yourself, privately, powerfully. So the next time you wake up from one of those wild dreams, don't just ask what it meant. Ask about its structure. Ask about its emotional journey. Because the real question isn't just what it means, but what kind of map is your mind trying to draw for you tonight?